Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. The Lord open our minds, understand His words, our lips may proclaim it, and our hearts that we might live it. Great crowds were traveling with Jesus, and He turned and addressed them. If anyone comes to me without hating his father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not carry his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. Which of you, wishing to construct a tower, does not first sit down and calculate the cost and see if there is enough for its completion? Otherwise, after laying the foundation and finding himself unable to finish the work, the onlookers should laugh at him and say, "This one began to build what he did not have the resources to finish." Or what king, marching into battle, would not first sit down and decide whether with 10,000 troops he can successfully oppose another king, advancing upon him with 20,000 troops? If not, while he is still far away, he will send a delegation and ask for peace terms. In the same way, any one of you who does not renounce all his possessions cannot be my disciple. The Gospel of the Lord. Well, I have an extra credit question for you this morning. Whose birthday do we celebrate today? Well, the opening hymn gave you a hint. It's the Blessed Mother's birthday, September the 8th. And I would think that is a special day, certainly for here in this place. Beautiful church dedicated to Our Lady. It was always a very important day in my family because it was also my mother's birthday. So I would tease her sometime and say, "Mom, you must be very disappointed because Mary had the Lord and you had me." And she'd say, "Oh, it's not so bad. I have your other two brothers." And then, of course, I would do my Rodney Dangerfield and say, "I get no respect." But it's so perfect the way things happen to unfold. Because on this feast day of the Blessed Mother's birth, we hear these challenging words of discipleship. And if there ever was a human being who lived what Jesus is challenging us to do, it was Mary. Can you imagine how this young girl, anticipating her marriage. Have you ever worked with brides? You know that they can be very challenging about their plans, their ideas, what their dream is. And here is Mary interrupted by the angel Gabriel her whole life and what God asks her to do. She couldn't imagine. And Joseph as well, anticipating his new bride, the life they would have together. And then his nightmares about taking her, this child to be born, and what it would unfold being. So how in the world did Mary and Joseph do this? Nothing was more important than pleasing God. That's essentially what the Lord challenges us to do. It's not my words, they're His words. For us not to be distracted by anything or anyone. Can you imagine the thousands of people who were following Him, but they were following Him many out of curiosity. He was the best show in town. There wasn't much else going on in the ancient world, except wars and pestilence. But were they committed followers? That's what he wants. So the burning question today, the unsettling question for you and me, is how committed are we? And to whom or what are we most committed? We use excuses all the time to avoid making God a priority in our life. Family commitments, sport commitments, political commitments. You know, I do believe there are a lot of people who are more wedded to their political parties and views than they are to their faith. And that's pretty sad, because none of these political parties are any good. So, who or what are you more committed to than Christ? Are we really disciples? Are we really committed to Jesus Christ? Or someone or something else more important? How many of us could live without our cell phone? What is it that ensnares you? I want this, I want that. You know, it is amazing what Catholics will get upset over. Oh, now you changed the faith formation program. Well, if something isn't working, you're not getting the results you want. It's foolish not to try something else. Is that not true? I mean, if a football team is losing, they have to come up with a new game plan. But we get wedded to things. Hear the words of this gospel. Everything that divides us from Christ is worthless. We have 300 on average funerals in our parish of Holy Spirit in a year. 300. That's almost one a day. How many people, the survivors, fight over what's left over? And they're going to have to give it away. Whether it's the house, whether it's the property, whether it's the jewelry, whether it's the money. How stupid. Broken families, broken relationships. Over what? Dust. Broken Christian communities. Over what? Church buildings that were built to honor and love God now divide people. His words 2,000 years ago are still ringing in the ears of any faithful Christian who wants to hear. Jesus Christ, our faith in Him, has to be the most important thing. And everyone and everything else has to be seen in light of serving Him. And you know what is special about it is, if we are right with Christ, then everything else will be right. Our relationships between spouses, families, children, grandchildren, the neighbors, it will all fall into peaceful existence if we are right with God. And we don't let other things get in the way. On this birthday of my mother, I'll share with you a little connection. She has been passed now for 8 years. But she made for me when I dedicated a church in my last assignment, what's called a corporal. It's this white cloth that lays on the altar here. And every time we celebrate Mass, there has to be a linen cloth, like the burial cloth of Christ, that is called a corpus. A corporal, which means corpus, which means body. This linen cloth holds the body and blood of Christ. And it's just a simple cloth. She embroidered a cross and an M on it for me. And this particular one we used when we dedicated a new church. And I carry it with me because at the beginning and end of every Mass we kiss it. We kiss the altar and the cloth that lays upon it. And it reminds me that in Jesus Christ, my mother still lives. And when I kiss it, I always say, "Love you, Mom." If we are right with Jesus Christ, we have everything we need.